Well, welcome back for the, hopefully will be the big turn on. We are within minutes of actually turning this TV on. All I have to do is put the tubes in. But there's one very important thing we need to get done also, and that is, see this right here? This is the selenium rectifier. Look at the size of that thing. It's really big. And these little vanes here were used to dissipate heat. Now what we're going to do is we're going to leave this in the chassis. But we are going to replace that with this. Is that amazing or what? We will replace this. This is a rectifier. This is a rectifier. This is a selenium rectifier. This is a silicon rectifier. And we're going to do that by placing it under the chassis. Once we get done with that, we'll do a little bit of greasing, put the tubes in, and we'll get everything connected and fire it up. Let's take a look at this thing on the schematic and see what I'm talking about. On the schematic, the symbol for both the big orange selenium rectifier is that right there. One side is negative, one side is positive. This is actually the negative side, and this is the positive side. This is the anode, this is the cathode. Well, if this is the negative side and this is the positive side, then why is it negative and positive? Why is it just reversed? Well, I covered this in a television restoration I did, my first one. It was a RCA TV. Same situation. What it is they just want to point the diode in the direction of the B+. That's all that means. So these are symbols only. They don't really apply to the actual polarity of the rectifier. So this still remains, even though it says positive here and negative there, it still remains negative and positive. Anode, cathode. Now the line on the schematic right there corresponds directly to the line on the diode. See that silver line right there on the end on the right hand side? That's the way it'll be going in. The anode will go toward this 1.5 amp fuse. The cathode, which is the one with the line, will go toward one end of this 4.7 ohm 5 watt resistor. Okay, we're going to solder it in like that. And we're going to do that below the chassis. And I'll show you what we're going to do it on. Now keep in mind that this old selenium rectifier here does have an internal resistance. So if we remove it out of the circuit and replace it with this, we're going to lose all that internal resistance. And the internal resistance is figured into the voltages coming out of it. There's no way the resistance in this tiny little diode is going to be the same as what's in here. So what we have to do is supplement that missing resistance to the diode with a resistor. We're going to be putting a 5 watt resistor in there, maybe a 10 watt. Depends how I feel. I may even go higher. I kind of have an idea of what I want to do with this. But the resistance itself will be fairly low. As far as the wattage goes, 5 to 10, probably 10 would be overkill, big time overkill. And what we're going to do is we're going to gator wire in various values until we get the voltages out of it that are called for on the schematic. I'll show you that in a minute. Alright, here's the deal. You'll recall that the cathode end of the silicon rectifier connected to the 4.7 ohm 5 watt resistor. That's the 4.7 ohm 5 watt resistor, and this is the brown wire that worms its way all the way down and solders to the silicon rectifier right there. So that's going to be the wire that connects to the cathode. The other end is the anode, and that's the wire that will connect to it. Now what we're going to do, I've already soldered the diode onto a terminal strip. I'm going to go ahead and remove this wire here. You know, this wire will come off, and we're going to solder this. This wire here will be out of the way also. We're going to solder that right there at a slight angle. The reason I'm doing it at a slight angle, I want to keep it away from this terminal strip right here. I don't want to take any chances of messing that up. So we'll solder that right there. Then we'll go ahead and solder to the cathode end, which will be right here. We'll solder to that terminal hole at the top. Right there. We'll solder to this end. That brown wire right there that comes down and hooks there. And we will solder this end over here. We'll remove it from there. And we will solder it to this end over here. And that should put us in the circuit. That should take care of the whole thing, with the exception of the resistance. Now that resistance is important. I'll tell you why. Coming out of the the selenium rectifier, we go through that resistor, and we ultimately have 3 voltages: 160, 155, and 140, which is not shown on this particular scan of the schematic. But trust me, it's 140. What we're going to do is monitor the 160. And I'm not going to put the resistance in right away. We're going to go ahead and bring the TV up and monitor this 160 volts right here. And slowly bring up the voltage, with the diode, in place of the selenium rectifier. And once we hit about 160 volts, we'll cool it right there. Now that'll probably be pretty low voltage. And the reason being, it'll be lower than what was normally required to reach that 160 because that resistance was in there. The resistance won't be there. We'll add it later, okay? But for the fire up, we'll just bring it up on lower voltage until we get to the 160. And we should be good to go, hopefully. Well, let me go ahead and get the terminal strip on there, get these 2 wires disconnected, get everything hooked up. And boy, I'll tell you what, I can feel that thing vibrating already. I can feel it wanting to go. Well, there it is, folks. It's all attached. Just like I said, I soldered that board onto there. It's nice and tight. Not going to go anywhere. And the wires are now connected, and they're not touching anything that's sharp. I don't want anything sharp. And mostly what I wanted here was the strength. I didn't want that thing falling off there at all. So it's in pretty good shape. One more thing to do. Very, very tiny little thing. We got to put some grease on a couple of gears. Maybe I better put the cover on the tuner too. That would be helpful. Alright, the tuner cover's back on, and the last thing we have to do, these are just minor little things, but you gotta take your time and make sure you do them. Don't get carried away at the last second where you screw stuff up. I've got some good quality super grease here. You can use lithium. I was going to use lithium, but at work they have these huge tubs of this stuff, and I asked the guy, I said, do you mind if I have a thimbleful or so? He said, yeah, go ahead, take that thimbleful. This is pretty good grease here. So what I'm going to do is put it down in there, very light, just kind of run the tuner around a little bit, then move it, and just kind of work on it slow and easy until I get all these little plastic gears that are meshing with these metal gears. I guess you don't have to put it on really super thick, and just a dirt collector if you do, but I want to make sure that it's got some good lubrication in there like that, So let me work on that for a while. Alright, there she goes. I just took my finger and went ahead and moved it down into the gear teeth and moved it on around. Then took a rag and wiped up any excess. I also greased it right here where this rod or this wire is running in a groove. And I also put some grease right here where this thing here presses against the shaft, okay? Kind of give it a little bit of, just might got a little bit extra on there. Anyway, that'll be nice. Okay. That's about it. Let's check on our our liquid tape connection that we did. Alright, let's go ahead and check that baby. Get this Scotch tape off of here that I used to hold it in place till it dried. It dried overnight. And I really like that liquid tape. It really does a good job of hardening up and securing things in position, and it gives you a different stress point, a different flex point, which is what I wanted for this wire. Okay, it didn't quite hold as much as I want. I need to probably apply a little bit more, but it is a lot stronger than it was, a whole lot stronger. I'll apply quite a bit more here and generate a flex point right here, a stress point, and that should take care of it, hopefully. And now, while we're waiting for that to dry, guess what? We're ready to put the tubes in, and today is Wednesday. Saturday, I hope to power it up. At long last, we have the picture tube set up. I've got a speaker over there connected. I've got all the wires hooked up that need to be hooked up. I've got my VCR connected to the antenna on the TV, and I'm also monitoring voltage. Remember, when we put that diode in there. We lost a lot of resistance, so we're going to be bringing it up on not so high resistance, not so high voltage, and I'll be monitoring it. This has got to be an accurate monitoring, so I'm going to go ahead and use the fluke to do that. I want it to be more accurate. So what we're going to do, here's the scenario. We're going to use the variac to bring it up. We're on it. We'll be on our isolation transformer because I have the television plugged in right here. Everything is hooked into the variac and into the isolation transformer over here. Okay. We're also going to be checking the high voltage with my high voltage probe. We should have a little over 13,000 volts at that point right there after we get the voltage up. All the tubes are in. The tubes have been checked as operational or brand new, or NOS types. And I can't think of anything else that needs to be done. I just can't think of anything. So what we're going to do is go ahead and fire it up. But I want to tell everybody, especially those that are fairly new to our hobby, it's all been fun and joy and laughter and farting around and doing this and that up to this point, because there's been no power to the chassis. It's been a dead chassis. We can do what we want. We can mess around and hook a wire up, suck solder up. We can do all sorts of things. But once we get to the bench, whether it be a turntable, a radio, a television, a record player, a stereo, hi-fi, I don't care what it is, an amplifier, whatever. Once you apply power, it's a whole new ball game. Be very careful, because this stuff can kill you. It can kill you. You don't just hook everything up and then fire it up. You hook it up, you double check it, you triple check it. You make sure everything is safe. You make sure things are taped off so there won't be any electricity coming through like I've done right here if you accidentally touch it. Everything has got to be safe. Always think safety first. If you don't do that, if you don't think safety first, you're the guy that's going to pay the price, not us, you. So it's very important. We don't want you getting injured. If you don't know what you're doing, get a hold of somebody that can show you, tell you, or be there when you do it to show you how to do it, okay? So let's go ahead. I'm going to make one more last check. Then we're going to start applying the power. By the way, in my VCR, I've got a tape that was sent to me by a Junk Collector. It was the first one in that Walter Cronkite series. Walter Remembers or something of that nature. So last check, and then we'll apply the power. Alright, I'm about as ready as I'm ever going to be. By the way, I propped this up using towels. My old workbench really isn't set up for this sort of thing. So I had to kind of do it and make sure that the neck of the tube is protected and up off. I don't want it to be falling down. It's a nice solid base. Thick towels. I also raised the front of the chassis up here with another towel so as not to accidentally bang this knob and break it. There's a lot of things you got to think of when you do this sort of thing. You just can't jump into it. Don't jump into this stuff. There's never any hurry. Alright, what I'm going to do is we're monitoring the voltage across the first filter cap, and we'll be looking for 160 volts. Let me put this down here so we can see it a little bit better. We do not want to exceed 160 volts on this meter while we bring it up. Okay, let's turn on the set. Get it up to about halfway. Let's go ahead and fire it up. Okay, we're good to go. Right now we're setting at about 60 volts. I started out at 60 volts. We'll just see what happens here. I don't see any tubes lighting up. What kind of voltage we got here? 105. Let's go up a little higher. I'm monitoring the current. We'll go up to about 130, I think. Oh my goodness, we're way beyond that. Let me see. We're going to have to go up to the 5 amp scale. We're above an amp. Let's go back down. What I did was I switched my amp meter to 5 amps, which means we're going to be using the bottom scale. I was maxed out at an amp, which would be right with a set with this many tubes. Okay, here we go. I'm going to crank it up a little higher. We're going to take it back up to about 115. Let's go up to 130. Now remember, the voltage you're reading right here is across the first filter cap. 130 or so. Well, we're looking pretty good. We're looking pretty good. Our current draws real low. I like that. Alright. See if we got any tubes lighting up. Do we have any? Yes, we do. We have a few tubes beginning to glow. Don't know if you could make that out or not. Let me close this curtain. We're getting a couple that are glowing, just barely glowing. All right. Let's go up to 140. So far we're good still. Now what are we actually putting out over here? We're actually sitting at about 90 volts on the AC output. Let's go up here to 150, see what that does. What I want is a bright picture. I'm not getting one. I'm not getting any picture at all. Is our tube lighting up? Yes, it is. The tube is lighting up. I'm not getting any sound either. I don't like that. Let's go up a little higher. All right, we're at 161. Let's go crank up the volume, see if we can hear anything. We're hearing something. Yes, we are hearing something. And we are getting that. Let me study the knob controls. I might have to go up with the brightness here. Well, we got something wrong. I just tested right here with my high voltage probe, and we have 0 voltage. So something's wrong. We're going to have to maybe check the cable or something. I don't know. We'll see. So you always check the easy stuff first. The other end may not be connected properly. Our problem could be right here. This is the CRT wire that comes out of the high voltage transformer, or it could be the high voltage transformer is not working. I don't know, but this is the wire that comes out, and we jammed the two together up underneath the insulation. I had to do this because this wire was too short. It wouldn't reach the CRT, so we had to resort to our spark plug wire that we made way back when we were working on the RCA TV. So I'm going to take this thing apart. I'm going to tack solder the two pieces together real quick like. Then I'm going to retape it and see if that changes things. Well, it appears that this wire that was up underneath this yellow insulation and connected to this, it appears that the wire, if I can get a little focus here, the wire has been burned off. No wonder I'm not getting any connection. Well, at least I hope that's why I'm not getting any connection. We're going to go ahead and resolder that wire and try it again, and then we'll put this insulation back on it. Well, she's been cleaned and resoldered, good to go. I might put a little bit of electrical tape down here, a little bit to kind of hold that in place. I don't like that thing spinning back and forth on that red wire. But anyway, she's resoldered. What I'm going to do is take our old spark plug wire here and stick it underneath the insulation, make sure we have contact, and tape it back up. All right, here goes second fire up on isolation transformer, Variac. Let's start bringing her up. I'm going to watch this voltage right here. Get up to about alright, let's just let it sit right there for a minute and see what happens. Let the old tubes warm up. Well, nothing's quite happening yet. Let's take it up to about 130. And 137, I guess. Let's see. Yep, the CRT is lighting up. Nothing's happening yet. Let's take it up to 150. Alright, that's not bad. Let me check all my wiring. Well, again, we have sound, but we have no picture. So what I'm going to do is we're going to test the voltage, again using a high voltage probe. I'll stick it right there, see what we get, stick it on there, and then hit the thumb switch. If I can get it to hold in one spot. There we go. Come on now, come on. And hit the thumb switch, push it up. And as you can see, we're getting 0 volts at the CRT. Well, as you saw, we have no high voltage here. So I went back and I tested the high voltage at the tube cap I raised the cap up a little bit and stuck the probe underneath. No high voltage there. So I touched the probe right here where that little bit of wax was flaked off. No high voltage there. Apparently there may be something wrong with our little old transformer. I hope not. Anyway, it's back to square one. Now, wasn't all of that exciting? Until next time, this is John. Well, I couldn't shut the video down without messing with it and messing with it and messing with it a little bit more. And in the process of messing with it, all of a sudden, bang, the picture came on. Don't ask me how. I don't know. Just all of a sudden, there it is. We do have a black mark at the bottom, you know, so it's going to need some adjusting and things like that, but the sound is okay, and it does want to roll a little bit, of course. There we go, finally locked in. That's it. All right, this is John for sure this time. See you later.